Well, we welcome you back to the International GT Open at a very rain-soaked Barcelona. We're here for qualifying 2 ahead of race 2 coming up later on this afternoon. And fresh after yesterday, we witnessed a fantastic race. You can see the temperatures now, of course, settling in at 21 degrees in the air, 91% now humidity. That is going to keep on rising. And the severity of the rain conditions we are currently witnessing. Plenty of moisture in the air. It's getting rather thick out there. Again, another thing for the drivers to contest with as they make their way out onto the track for our second qualifying session of the weekend. We're just seeing there Christopher Haase and Simon Rijkers, Easterlent Racing Audi. Of course, Haase behind the wheel this time. They finished second yesterday after, unfortunately, being unable to closed down on Levente Reves after Christopher Haase got held up in behind traffic yesterday. It was quite a helter-skelter ending to that Barcelona race, but it was expertly done by Levente Reves after a stunning first stint from Maxi Gertz, and it will be Reves behind the wheel for the Motorpark team here this morning. Of course, we also witnessed some fantastic moments in Pro-Am yesterday. Congratulations has to go to Yannick Mettler and Dexter Muller. Of course, Mettler coming back fresh from a trip to Japan that he thoroughly enjoyed after I spoke to him yesterday, and now topping it all off with a victory in class in yesterday's race 1. There is your championship leader as of now. Race winner yesterday, Timo Rumpf-Karl, understandably delighted in Parc Ferme yesterday, celebrating with Levente Reves. Of course, a driver that has come through the realms of the single-seater rostrum at Motorpark in the Euro Formula Open Championship in his first official season campaign in GT3 cars, now leads a championship and could be on his way to collecting his first championship at the same time. Remarkable story. Youth has been the story so far this year. George Morgan here in the commentary box once again, and joining me once more, the great Ewan Dunlop.
You are far too kind, George, but I'll take it. Thank you very much. I'm going to be a proper Brit here and just talk about the way the first car's off already. It's the 54. That is the Dexter Muller, Yannick Mettler car. They qualified fourth yesterday, yeah. And that's where we've seen so many cars come off already. We've had the GT Cup this morning too, and that was a bit of a mess, to be perfectly honest. Let's have a little look.
Wow, that's Dexter Muller behind the wheel of that one, obviously. Remember, Yannick Mettler qualified very strongly in yesterday's Q1. Was actually featuring inside the top 4 on the opening stint.
Yeah, that turn 10-11 has called absolute havoc already this morning with 32 cars on track. This is a matter of get out quickly, get a time on the board, and now we are entering our first racing laps, now first qualifying laps, and it's going to be a matter of get a time in. We're looking at around about probably 2 minutes there or thereabouts, although yesterday we were of course down to the 140s, but rain is dictating pace. A couple of flashing, get out the way, I want to get my time in. But yeah, as you've already mentioned, things are ever so close. There's a 6-point lead for Levente Reves over Christopher Haase and Simon Rijkers, reigning champions in the overall classification. But it is tied at the top of the AM, and there's only 2 points between our leaders and second place in the Pro-Am. So plenty to play for. And with a double-point round at Monza, this qualifying could be absolutely significant as long as you get a flying lap in. So here comes Christopher Haase. He is looking to be setting the first flying lap time, and it is going to be, as anticipated, very close to the 2-minute mark. And all cars just keep 4 tyres on the tarmac. Get a time in. Christopher Haase will do that. It's going to be pretty good, actually. 1:55.553. Who else is going to put some times down? 1:56 for Ralph Aaron in the 82. 1:57 for Steve Jans in the 6. 1:58. All of these cars, of course, in traffic. Christopher Haase had a nice, I'm going to say clean air, rain-filled clean track in front of him.
Yeah, of course, these times are going to be very different to the ones we saw yesterday, where Jaden Kelly, Josh Rattigan actually behind the wheel of the Greystone that went fastest in qualifying with a 1:38.587. You can forget about 1:38s here in these conditions, folks. Christopher Haase currently fastest at the moment. Tommaso Mosca for AF Corsa now up into second place, but setting, despite purples in sectors 1 and sectors 3, not enough to go fastest because Haase just simply too good in the middle sector. Ralph Aaron now currently showing green in the first sector as well. Purple middle sector for Dominic Bauer. Barman, who was impressive as well yesterday, of course, lining up alongside Valentin Pierberg, and have actually taken the Pro-Am lead as of the race yesterday on 80 points, one ahead of Aaron Walker and Steve Jans right now. Of course, remember, it was Aaron Walker and Steve Jans who arrived into the weekend as championship leaders. It was 74 points in their pocket as opposed to Jans and Pierberg taking 72. And as I say that, Pierberg going quickest in this session. So 2 points on arrival into the weekend. There's now a point between them and the roles are reversed. Pierberg and Barman top of the championship and looking to levy more points in their favour this time as well. Leventi Ravesh going fourth fastest as well in the initial. That's a 1:56.133, just a second behind Dominic Baumann. There's the 2Cs Motorsport car. Should be at home in these conditions considering the name of the team, but managing to just find the track surface again. Didn't want to go too far because that would have led him straight into the gravel, and we know how hard it is to get out of that. Track limits, time deletion there for car 4. That's Zach Meakin from Optimum Motorsport, as we now see the Jelmer Berman 74 car. That's another Team Motor Park car making its way around, with this time with Raymond Voss behind the wheel. There's Baumann, of course, now our current P1 sitter, taking some interesting lines, Ewan, coming through out of turn 3.
There are some gingerly tiptoeing cars around some of these corners. They would have been watching the GT Cup and watching for those spots to be really careful about. And again, it's turn number 10 and 11 which have been causing the most trouble earlier on today. Just checking the times here, we've now had 29 of our 32 cars set a time. A shame not to see car number 108. That's another one's gone off. Oh, two in the
two.
That could be it for the time being. Yeah, red flags coming out. Beached at, dare I say, it was of course turn number 11.
Look to me, just from my POV of seeing everything unfold, Matteo Cairoli, I think, going into the gravel. Now there is the 33 of Dean McDonald, I think, doing the opening stint. Remember, he had a spin yesterday. It was a really poor day at the office. I must say, I caught up with Dean in the paddock yesterday night, and he looked incredibly despondent. So the 33 going for 2 extravagant spins in this session alone. So poor day at the office for the 33. And there is the 65. That is Matteo Cairoli, who's coming in this weekend, obviously in place of Lucas Dunner, who is poorly this weekend. So Heiko Neumann with a new teammate, but this is not how they would have envisaged returning to the circuit. Of course, it's great to see the Elite Motorsport Ferrari back on the circuit this time. Remember, they retired very early at the very start of yesterday's race, having qualified brilliantly yesterday morning.
Yeah, plenty of cars looking for some redemption. I was just going to mention too the great performance yesterday of Amir Snoran in the AM competition, picking up a second place finish behind Zigo and Wasek. Unfortunately, still in the garages, and hopefully we'll get to see him later on this morning when this gets back underway.
Steve McDonald finding himself back into the pits, so they will be looking to just clean up whatever gravel's left over, maybe even stick a new set of boots on. There'll be the wet tyres, obviously utilised right through the course of this session, you'd imagine, folks. Gino Forgione and Michele Rugolo. Of course, Rugolo, one of the long servants of the International GT Open, one of the more experienced as well, taking part in AM class, just due to sheer age. Of course, you can't really deny his talent, one iota. But one of the feature talents in this series, going along with former veterans Andrea Montemini, and also at the same time Miguel Ramos, who has also taken part in some racing this year. Montemini, who we've seen in recent years as well, return to the championship, both of whom are multiple, champions here in the International GT Open. As the Porsche sits up, of course, Fabio Babini back behind the wheel of a Porsche here in the International GT Open, fresh from the back of a GT Cup Europe qualifying session. Easterland now up on the jacks. Of course, Christopher Haase taking the circuit this morning, and they're going to be looking for a win. They need a win, really, today in race 2 to help their cause in this season's championship, because Leventi Ravesh could have put a huge dent in their hopes after yesterday's race.
Yeah, that was his 4th win of the season, and a couple of other podiums as well. Whereas Christopher Haase, Simon Riker, they've picked up 5 second places, including yesterday, which is a little bit painful. They did it 1 win in race 2 at Hungaroring and a 3rd place in race 1 at the Red Bull Ring, but a puncture in race 2 scuppered their chances to close the gap even further, as Ravesh picked up a 5th place in that race, which means all in all a 6-point gap between the leaders and the reigning champions. Third place in the championship right now, Tommaso Mosca and Carl Bennett on 97 points. So not out of it yet, with a good performance today and a standout at Monza where double points are available. They're not out of the championship yet, but they are the outsiders right now.
Yeah, Rodrigo Testa, of course, now taking part in the International GT Open as a late entry for the Oregon Team Lamborghini, confirmed coming into the weekend, has taken part in Italian GT Endurance over the last year or so and last season at the same time. Also competitor in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo World Finals as well. It's been a consistent theme, really, for Oregon team to promote drivers that have come through the Italian GT scene, and we see the, of course, rock and roll from Team Tour, who are currently sat in the garage. Ever a fantastic presence. Ardun Gudmundsson in the behind the wheel, and they managed to free up the 65 of Matteo Cairoli, so he now out of the gravel, back out onto the circuit. Of course, Heiko Neumann will take the wheel for the second half of the race coming up later on this afternoon, and I can confirm that fast lane is now going to be open very shortly, so we should go green very soon. Rolf Aaron behind the wheel of the Mercedes, just in front of the Santaloc that Michael Blanchimont is going to be piloting here this morning. So, it's Marcus Pavrud, I should say. Pit lane open at 9:52. So in about a minute and a half's time, we will be back underway in qualifying. 18 minutes and 23 left on the clock. Look at that wheel spin.
It really feels like Barcelona is playing a trick on us today. Every time the cars come in for a red flag, they turn the taps back on, and as soon as they get out, it's back off again. But we have got 18 minutes and 23 seconds of qualifying. Whether we see all of it, fingers crossed we do. But this will be all in all during our schedule this morning. That's the third red flag we've seen across the entire day. First, of course, in the GT Open. So the cars are waiting very patiently. Some of those, of course, have set a pretty good time already. 29 of our 32 scheduled starters have been out and completed a full racing lap. Anywhere between 1:55 and around about the 2:05 is that 10-second window, with Dominic Bowden still on top, 1:55 at 1:26. Whether we can see quicker than that, we'll see over the next 20 minutes or so. But they are waiting patiently in their garages, mechanics ready to set them off. And must say, the rain, as far as I can see, has stopped now, and this is the brightest it's been in probably about 45 minutes at the circuit. So fingers crossed we can get a full 18 minutes in. The light goes green and we can get back underway. One out lap, then we'll go racing once again for qualifying. 1:55 the time to beat.
Yeah, the 28 making its way out onto the circuit, and we'll be back in action once again. Louis Michael Dorbecker leading out the train of cars out of the pits. And, of course, not wasting any time, Christopher Haase, keen to get to the front of the rostrum, needs to land a big blow in qualifying today. Of course, when you need a big scoreline, when you need a big result, you call upon Christopher Haase in times of need. That's exactly what Easterland Audi are going to be doing. And Simon Riker, who put in a sterling display yesterday as well in the opening stint, well, he's got to bring it home this time. But Easterland, you definitely fancy their chances in this scenario. Will have a small handicap after the second place yesterday, but they'll look to mitigate that through the course of the race. And Haase, you can just see there, trying to chase for that clear air. Obviously, Louis Michael Dorbecker, not the fastest of drivers against this initial rostrum, and especially these conditions, they need that clear air just so they have the visibility, Ewan.
You can see the spray right there off the back of Christopher Haase's car, doing absolutely no favours whatsoever, so don't be surprised to see them pull back ever so slightly as we approach turns 12 and 13 to give themselves one good flying opportunity. Hopefully there will be many more, of course. It'll be unlikely that we see a dry line be created. Well, potentially, actually, 15 minutes, you might just see a racing line come to fruition as we approach the end of this qualifying session, which will mean a huge, huge difference in terms of qualifying time. So it might not be until the very last couple of minutes that we see those times flying in and everything changes at the top.
Yeah, 51A, of course, are also hunting for some clear track space at the same time. Tommaso Mosca behind the wheel. They celebrated a massive weekend back at Red Bull Ring, where they made it yet another victory. It was back-to-back, if you include the Paul Ricard Race 2, where they took their first win of the season. They made it 2 wins and in a row at Red Bull Ring. Have taken now back-to-back 5-pointers after race 2 at Red Bull Ring and now race 1 at Barcelona. But definitely with this rain coming down, it throws an extra spanner in the works for every single driver out on this roster. We've got a slow runner on the left-hand side, as you can just see, just allowing other cars to pass. But just see how tricky visibility is at the moment. And Mosca, a little bit of a twitch coming through turn 1. You try and keep these cars as dialed in as possible. Haase, of course, vastly experienced at this level, a former FIA GT champion, and at the same time competing at the very heights, winning titles across various different disciplines, and have really housed the Eastern End team as a whole as a force to be reckoned with in this championship in recent times. Of course, GT Open champions now off the back of the last 2 years. He's just gone purple again inside the first sector as well. He's a Nürburgring SP9 winner, and you get questionable conditions at Nürburgring all the time. So that is something that will become a familiar scenario for Haase, who's now making his way down through towards the next left, of course, also competing in GT Masters and becoming champion in 2007, coupling that with the GT3 European Championship, the FIA class competition in 2009. Blancpain GT 2012 champion alike, and the hair is on the run. Now with over 2¼ tenths quicker inside that first sector based on the previous best that Baumann laid down, 19 thousandths though above Baumann's time coming out of the middle sector. So this is, he needs a big final sector now, does Christopher Haase.
Wide.
And yeah, trying to search for some better grip out there on track. Obviously, it's a rich commodity here at the moment with the rain falling the way it is. Haase, who was purple with that initial 33 in that first sector, but one of the very few drivers setting a 33 in sector 1, now rounded the final corner at turn 14 and up towards the line, trying to squeeze every ounce out of the Audi R8 LMS, and it's fastest for Haase with 14 minutes and 20 to go.
First man to go sub 155, and they'll start flying through now. Prepared to see these boards change. Still got Charlie Hollings top in the AM class in the 188. That's the Garage 59. Christopher Haase will go quicker again, potentially, as this line starts to dry out. Who else is coming across the line? Any changes in place? Dominic Baumann, who's just had the lead taken away from him in the Pro-Am competition, but he's still got 3 cars between him and Fabio Babini in that class.
Really taking the sword to Haase at the moment is Dominic Baumann. Obviously that first time setting the benchmark. Of course, Haase may have lifted it, but that middle sector time was certainly something special for Dominic Baumann in that last lap. Of course, in conditions such as this, it comes down to a driver's every instinct to mastermind a top lap here at Barcelona, of course, full of variance in terms of cornering, and then plenty of risk as well. Jaden Kelly popping into 15th fastest, just ahead of Dean McDonald as well. So that's the 2 Greystone GTs now manacled together. Gino Forgione moving up the order as well at the same time. Now this is Baumann. Look at the stepping out of the Mercedes AMG GT3, and that is the experience right there of Dominic Baumann to retain control of the car.
Yeah, pro car, leaving that car together. Some of the amateurs might not be able to control it in such a way. Now, Christopher Haase, 3 turns left. Can he go any quicker? The only car currently under 154 and did it by just, well, 52 thousandths of a second. He's got 2 more turns to come.
The middle sector not so great though for Haase, 49.0 against the 46s that we're generally seeing on the board at the moment, so quite a ways down on his personal best. He'll probably just tee up another run later on. Matteo Cairoli, after beaching his car not too long, causing the red flag, he's now put in a personal best inside the first sector though, 3.5 tenths or so away from the fastest time that Haase has enlisted, so it's not by any means going to be fastest, but it's a personal best, which is what's important for Matteo Cairoli, just to build up the laps if he is allowed an opportunity to build up laps given how the weather's behaving. But I will say this, there's some bright spots coming through over the 3rd sector here, Ewan.
It's not looking too bad, and that means, like, generally in these sessions you'll have a 10-minute go, come into the pits, make some changes, have a little bit of a debrief, go back out for another 10. Seeing as we've already had the red flag in just 18 minutes, maybe they'll stay out for the full 18. We have got 3 cars in the pits. Tommaso Mosca did so well yesterday, Ralph Aaron and Carol Bash have come in. But I anticipate potentially cars just staying out as this track dries out to get in a few more opportunities. Just in case, because although the sun is shining now on the start pit straight, on the start of the western end at least, so the weather's coming out, the sun is starting to shine, and you are going to see potentially that dry line on the racing line.
I must say, it's shining quite nicely at Sector 1 as well, so I'm wondering whether we could see, you know, I'm not going to say a dry track, it's not going to be dry, but I mean a drier track, I think, at this point. Qualy currently fastest in the speed trap as well, has also found a personal best for the Dragon Racing team in the first sector, so that's a good sign for the Ferrari. They've got Axel Jeffries in the car alongside him this weekend once more, as we watch Matteo Cairoli still working away to try and find an improved lap time. Currently sat P8 in our standing. There is, of course, Tommaso Mosca. His car now in the garage, and of course, now go to work to get it prepared for the final runs. We've got 10 minutes and 44 left to run. This is certainly better conditions than we've witnessed already this morning with, of course, the GT Cup Europe Championship from previous. There's Peter Riker watching on just in behind with Simon Riker alongside him as well. So the Riker family will be hoping for a big result for Easter Lent this time. They're currently witnessing Haase on pole position, provisional pole as it stands. Anthony Bartone losing time in the middle sector, so will not be posting a faster run on this occasion should it stay like this, despite holding a much improved first sector. But as it stands, it's Haase, Baumann, Mosca. Baumann and Mosca in the pits. Revesz down in fourth, still out on track. No improvement in that first sector for him. Felipe Salacada's improved in the first sector. Qualy Larker with a green middle sector and nursing an early 48 with a 48.1. But Haase will now look to bring this down to a steady pace. I'm wondering if he might come in at the end of this lap just for a review with the team. But there's Dominic Baumann already in the box. Mosca doing the same. And it looks like he's heading straight back out again.
Yeah, that wasn't long whatsoever, was it? Not sure what was changed there. It was Christopher Haase. He's making his way just through turns 6 and 7. And his first sector for Christopher Haase, 34.3, which wasn't fantastic. It's about 0.3 down on his current provisional pole time. Although he does seem to be going some.
Haase coming down in towards turn 10. Of course, out of the fastest corner at Campstead, I'd imagine they're taking it with some degree of trepidation because obviously it can get very slick on the curbs at the same time. Just see the glaze along the top of the surface. That's just the surface water once again, folks, that the drivers are having to dance around. But you just see the amount of spray has reduced immensely already. So now this will only play into the hands of the drivers now, as this will surely turn into an ever-improving track. Christopher Haase now, he will come into the pit. Yeah. So just as I suspected he might do, following suit with what we've seen from Baumann. Tommaso Mosca's headed back out, so I can't imagine Haase will be in for long. He'll be very much aware that Dominic Baumann's already headed out, and this track looks like it's improving. I mean,
right now, there is a huge gap between turn 13 and turn 1. That's almost 1.5 kilometres, so it's picking that window to make it the way to the end of the pit lane too. Get some clean air on a potentially drying track. There's no line forming whatsoever, because the spray coming up is still, as you can see, significant. But we are now down to 8 minutes of qualifying, trying to get out the spray, find a line, put the brakes on, give yourself some clean air, and maybe a couple more goes at this. But what I am looking at is the overall timing sheet. It does give you a really good indicator of how good these pro drivers are. The AMs at the moment in the 2 minutes plus, while Charlie Hollings 1:59.1 and Alexander Goodmanson 1:59.7. They are a good 5 seconds off the times of the likes of Haase, Baumann, Mosca and Revesz. It's significant differences, and just that experience of those top drivers.
Yeah. So now watch Tommaso Mosca, fresh from making his way into the pits. He's going to be joined by Stanislav Jedlinski as well, who obviously saw Christian Korzanowski qualifying well yesterday. As now Matteo Cairoli is worked on. You can just see there the groove tyres, the Michelin rubber. Obviously the wet compound that we're using here out on circuit. Of course, the tyres have got slightly softer this year as opposed to the ones from last season. So just applies a little bit of added grip for the drivers to utilise in these races. Does mean that they do have to manage them to a certain degree as well at the same time.
Haase's back out already.
Yeah, not wasting any time, and I'm not surprised, to be honest with you. We've only got just under 7 minutes to go in the session, and you need time to warm those tyres up to land a stiff blow at the end of qualifying. No question Dominic Baumann's going to be trying to pull off that very same thing. Baumann, incidentally, pulling off a 33.7 inside the first sector, not quite a low 33.7. No, it's a high one, 33.7 in the first sector. But as we now watch the 1:88 that Mark Sampson is piloting, of course, alongside Charlie Hollings for this round. Great to see Charlie back as well at the same time. A familiar face to many if you watch the International GT Open, and has featured on various occasions throughout the last few years, and always great to see Charlie back with us. And Mark Sampson, who's had a great season so far, of course competing for the AM title as it stands, and is currently in the midst of a huge fight with Gino Forgione and Michele Rugolo. Michele Rugolo and Gino Forgione, incidentally, remember, went on a run of 5 wins in succession in AM class. Neither of the two teams picked up victories yesterday, but what I will say is that they are level on points now, 104 across the board, because remember, it was Mark Sampson who took victory at the Spa 500, and that was a double points round, and that just goes to show how much of an impact those those GT Open 500 races, that just goes to show how much they are worth to the drivers. And we've got another one coming up at Monza in our next round.
Yeah, this is all coming down to the last race of the season. Nothing will be won today in Pro-Am or AM. And there's a spinner.
74. Yeah, the 74. That's Riemann Vos stepping in, of course, alongside Jelmer Berman for Team Motor Park. And they won't want to tread into the gravel. We've already seen that happen to Matteo Cairoli, also for Motor Park. And we can see it just at the top of our... Oh, my goodness me, we had it too wide there going through. And credit to Riemann Vos. My goodness, just watching out the window, I do apologise. Of course, you're not seeing it on live pictures, but we were just looking there, and there was a little bit of movement. Very close together then on the run out of turn 11. But Vos, unfortunately, pivoting the car before rejoining. But yeah, a close moment as they rejoin the track, but no harm, no foul. We're back to green conditions at the top of the hill. 4 minutes and 30 to go here, Ewan, and it's still Haase on top, but no improvements.
I was going to say there's been no improvement in a significant time, or at least in the second half of this session. In the last 10 minutes or so, no changes at all. Haase at first, Bowman second, a 1:54.9 and a 1:55.1. Changes through the middle of the pack. Only 2 cars in the pit now. In fact, 1, because on the outlap is Levente Reves. So, Reves currently in 4th place. Christopher Haase in first. So on the first and second row with the grid, the top 2 in the championship. As we've said already, 6 points separating them. This is a massive, massive race, because this will mean so much going into that double pointer in Monza in a couple of weekends' time. Christopher Haase and Simon Rocket, they will be utterly, utterly desperate for that win today. And starting on pole, if they can get to that first corner in the lead, they will be incredibly difficult to catch. They always are in the Audi.
Yeah, I'd hesitate to say that, of course, they want to improve. Mackenzie Cresswell, though, rising to the top. Well, I say rising to the top, he's into P4, but second highest in Pro-Am. But that's a great improvement there for Cresswell. Ralph Aaron into 4th as well. Of course, his brother is Paul Aaron, the former, driver, of course, now as a reserve for F1 teams such as Alpine. In recent times, Philip Salicata inside the top 10 ahead of Matteo Cairoli. Dean McDonald now pushed down to P11 with Carol Bash down in P12. Very unlike Carol Bash so far, I have to say. Of course, now finding use of the Ferrari 296 GT3 as opposed to the Audi R8 LMS at Olymp Racing. So now there's parity between the 2 Olymp cars here this time. And Tom Emson behind the wheel of the Elite Racing Ferrari. Currently 8th fastest. Of course, Tom Leben took qualifying yesterday, did very well. But an issue right at the start of the race, bringing the car in, meaning they had to retire and did not take part in the race, as Marcus Pavrud goes 13th quickest out of Steve Jans. Zach Meakin down into 15th, and Jaden Kelly coming in with an improved first sector. The middle sector, 1.5 seconds down on Haase at the moment. No improvements again from our top 2 in the standing right now. Haase and Bowman both at the top. Only Haase has managed to unleash a 54 so far in this session. No one else can touch that.
Yeah, Tom Leben and Tom Emson, they'll be absolutely desperate to redo some of the undone work yesterday with no points after a second place finish in race 2 at the Red Bull Ring. They came into the weekend just 14 points off the championship lead and very much part of that championship conversation. However, they now find themselves 29 points back They need a massive day today and some fingers crossed in Monza as well.
Yeah, Jaden Kelly popping into 17th again. We're holding 17th with a 1:57.408. That's an improved lap time on his part, but Rodrigo Testa from Team Oregon, a little twitchy moment there for poor Jaden Kelly coming through turn one. Just looked like the nose was just pivoting a little bit, and the sister Greystone GT McLaren just giving way. Dean McDonald behind the wheel of that one. Of course, in the 33, just allowing Jaden Kelly to carry on through and benefit from the clean air. Rodrigo Testa, though, as I said, now up on his previous best, but it's not as quick as Jaden Kelly's first sector time from last time out. We've got a 33.9 in the first sector from Matteo Cairoli, which is faster than what Christopher Haase and Dominic Baumann have done recently. There's Kalila Letlarka going into the gravel at turn one, but luckily enough, only in the shallow end, so therefore could dig his car out.
I'm amazed we've not seen that time of Christopher Haase either come down by him or somebody else with this track improving. It's not rain now for at least 10, 15 minutes potentially. So the track will be getting better, will be heating up. What we got to now, track temps has gone from a low of 21.4 up to 22. So it's not really raised that much, to be perfectly honest. Air temperature's gone from, well, 21 to 22. So although it looks great out the window, in fact, conditions in the air and on track barely changing whatsoever.
Yeah, Christopher Haase also having a time deleted for track limits at turn 3. That was the 1:59.707. So unfortunately, that won't be enlisted, but it was still slower than his previously fast time, his current fastest time. So I don't think he'd be too upset about that. Gino Forgione also having a time deletion as well. We're currently riding on board with him right now in the AF Corsa. Little twitch there from the 21 as now Riemann Vos meets the Optimum Motorsport McLaren. And further back, I think that might be either Levente Ravesh or Matteo Cairoli just making their way through turn one, as well as Riemann Vos struggles and searches for some track space. Dominic Baumann into the pits, seemingly feels that he can't improve on his previous best time and can't surpass Christopher Haase. The checkered flag has come out, so the final runs will now be brought inwards. There's 3 cars currently locked in as fastest in the speed trap. Rodrigo Testa, Francesco Simonazzi, Kalila Letlarka, the 3 cars that are fastest in the speed trap right now, as we see the 2 motor parks go side by side. And riding on board now with the McLaren, the Optimum Motorsport, or shall I say the Chevrolet, Adam Ali in the Chevy. Currently riding on board with the 42 now of Adam Ali. And now stretching down through towards the left-hander, sweeping uphill. And just see there a divisive line, not taking that wider line that usually we would see. And this is basically Adam Ali taking what he believes to be the better line of sight. Really now on these tyres, they're almost searching for the spray right now, Ewan.
Yeah, a couple of cars choosing not to finish that last opportunity for a flying lap, including Christopher Haase. We know he was a little bit slower than anticipated on that final lap, and the track deleted beforehand, so the checkered flag is being waved. I think most cars at the moment, though, are not choosing to even cross the start-finish line and instead just make their way into the pit lane. No point risking anything, even on the down lap in these wet conditions. So all cars seemingly home safely. And that man right there, Christopher Haase, will start race 2 here in Barcelona later on this afternoon in P1.
Yeah, just the result he needed. Car number 1 picking up P1 here in qualifying. And it's a second pole position of the season for Christopher Haase and Simon Riker. Haase getting the job done that was needed. And that's the one he was looking for. Thumbs up from Haase. The hair strikes again. And now we'll be looking ahead to the race this afternoon in hope of squeezing yet further points in their championship run this campaign. Makes his way into the garage. Big hugs all around with the Easterland Audi team. I'm sure all smiles for Peter Riker as well, and the big smile from the team boss as well at the same time.
And Levente Ravesh pushed down to 6th at the end there too. So from P1 to P6, our top 2 in the championship.
Let's take you through the standing. Christopher Haase back on top once again for Easterland Racing Audi. Dominic Baumann in second, was unable to stop Haase, running away with it. Haase, the only driver in the 154s. Tommaso Mosca in third ahead of Ralph Aaron. Mackenzie Cresswell for 2Cs Motorsport. Welcome to the series. 5th fastest, second in Pro-Am. Levente Ravesh championship leader in 6th ahead of Tom Empson with the returning Elite Motorsport Ferrari. Philip Salicard 8th with Matteo Cairoli in 9th. Dean McDonald for Greystone GT in 10th ahead of Carol Bash in 11th. Marcus Pavarud for Santalok in 12th, Steve Jans, then Zach Meakin, they're 13th and 14th, ahead of Jamie Stanley, Jaden Kelly in 16th, ahead of Rodrigo Testa for Oregon in 17th, Anthony Bartone ahead of Fabio Babini, and Adam Ali in Stella Motorsport Chevrolet Corvette in the Z06, then further down in 20th, ahead of Charlie Hollings, Francesco Simonazzi, Ardun Gudmundsson for Team Tour, Kalila Letlaka in 24th, ahead of Dexter Muller, Gino Forgione in 26th, ahead of Louis Michael Dorbecker, Antol Zygo, Riemann Voss, and Alfredo Hernandez down in 30th place, with 31st going to Stanislav Jedlinski ahead of Emir Naran, who did not set a time. We did not see him go out onto the track, was second in arm yesterday. So there's Haase, now looking to remove the helmet. Job done here for the German. Of course, once again showing all his qualities. Tough session, yes. Under a smile as well, and thumbs up. Great work from Christopher Haase. And lovely stuff. Fantastic. And there's the hair as well, just for reference. So all of you wondering what that is at home, picture of the rabbit's face and obviously the hare's face. Don't say rabbit, the hare is faster than the rabbit. And Haase confirming that fact here today. So, qualifying over, and I have to say, Ewan, it was a tricky one out there. The weather, despite it abating towards the end, it still didn't provide any improvements in terms of the top time.
Which is a real surprise.
Now we can move down for an interview with Alfredo.
Christopher Haase, pole position ahead of race 2 in very different weather conditions today.
Yeah, this quali session was extremely tough. I mean, I experienced a lot already in my life, but Barcelona showed me something new here. In the beginning it was very wet, but extremely grippy. And then through the session, for some reason, I felt like the drip is getting less. We actually played for that to be faster later on, but I'm happy that I was able to set at least a fast run in my second outing. So yeah, thanks to East Talent Racing, we just managed to be right there, and pole position is fantastic.
Of course, and useful. We'll see how the weather will be later, but everything is open in the championship. But
this is true, but we focus race by race.
That's a good approach. Well done.
Race by race, pole by pole, 2 against his name now, and we'll look ahead to the race coming up later on this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you later. Goodbye.